My name is Kayleigh Sandomirsky. My pronouns are she, her. Yeah, I'm so sorry. My name is so long. um, I am wearing a red jumpsuit with kind of orangey red lipstick, and I have ob ombre hair, red ombre hair, and I am a Belarusian English woman.
Hi, everyone. My name is Linda. I use she, her pronouns. I am, I was going to say I'm short, which I am, but you can't see that in the video really. But I am a short white woman. I've got brown hair. It's just above my shoulders. And I'm wearing a green sweater.
I just want to acknowledge as well that we are zooming in from the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations here in Vancouver, what is colonially called Vancouver. Thank you to Andrew for bringing me back for a second year. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with Peak Fest, and I feel very honored to continue this collaboration with the festival. Um, as a second generation white settler, I feel extremely honored and privileged to be here on these lands. And as somebody who grew up in a very white and suburban neighborhood, I realized as I got older that a lot of the teachings that I learned when I was younger were either wrong or missing huge portions of Canadian history. And as I got older and, went to university and was just out in the world, I realized that it's my job and it's my responsibility to fill in those holes and fill in those gaps. And it's important that we continue to negotiate what being on this land means to us. And it's important to continue learning and giving back to the communities that have been here since the beginning and that continue to be, you know, fighters in the front lines for this land, because I think it's really important to honor their stories and to listen. Um, so yeah, I feel like I just like to say a little bit about that coming from myself. I'll let Linda kind of, if there's
Yeah.
anything you want to add.
I'll just add, I think it's an interesting point to acknowledge that it's your job to learn um, about Indigenous culture, and I acknowledge that it's my job as an immigrant, as someone who didn't grow up here, to take on that learning as well, and also acknowledging that I'm an immigrant with the privilege of not having had a choice in moving to Canada
Yeah.
and living on this land.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a little bit about who we are too, which we're going to get into who Linda is a lot more, but maybe just you're like, who am I? That's
Who
a
are you,
great,
Kayleigh?
that's a great question. I'm a freelance production and stage manager. I am also a curator, curating the conversation series this year for Peak Fest. I also do producing, as well as performing in very small amounts. We actually graduated from Simon Fraser University together from the performing arts sector. And now we are both arts administrators. Um, and yeah, so that's like a little bit about myself. And I'm not going to say what Linda does or is, but we're going to get into that. So I want to just talk about kind of how we got on this topic to begin with. So arts administration is a newer job for myself. Linda has been doing it for some time now. And when Andrew approached me to lead this conversation series and curate these conversations, we had a chat. And as arts administrators, both of us, we realized a lot of people have no idea what arts administrators are. I don't even fully know if I know what they are yet. And that there is much more that goes into a production behind the scenes that people even know. Like they don't know that those things are happening. And I think it's really important to talk about it. I think it's really important to teach people that these people exist, that these jobs exist, that things don't just magically happen. And as performers, I think for both of us, when we were in university, it was like, I'm here to perform and everything else is meaningless because people will want to see me. I'm great. And then you get older and you realize that that's not the case, that there are many people behind the scenes that are bringing people out to shows, that are letting people know about the work, that are updating, the communities. Because without that, how do you know what's going on in this city? What's going on across BC? What's going on across Canada? Like arts administrators help us connect with other bodies of work as well, not just in this city too, but through my work with Andrew, we've been able to make more connections between Vancouver and Victoria. And I think that that's really important. And I'm really pushing for that more in my artistic practice, to try to make those connections more. And I think it's important to teach students, young artists and older artists, that these people exist that have these tools to help connect people in a way we didn't know was possible. Throwing a party is great, doesn't always bring people to shows. Having lots of friends, great, doesn't always bring people to shows. So Linda is here to give us some tips and tricks of how to get people out to productions, and kind of just give an overall idea as to what it means to be an arts administrator in the performing arts sector. So yeah, that's kind of how we got onto this topic. Also, I just highly admire the things that you do, and you're so hardworking, and it's just, I see that, and I want other people to also acknowledge and hug their arts administrators. It's kind of an ode to that as well. But yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself then. Yeah.
It's funny. I was just thinking as you were kind of talking about, I think I agree. A lot of people don't know what goes in, I don't think the general public really knows, and I don't think a lot of artists always understand all of the kind of various roles that are happening, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And the work and the expertise that goes into it. I taught a workshop a while ago to post-secondary students about
in a high school? No, at a university.
Yeah, at a college.
Yeah.
At Studio 58.
Nice.
And it was kind of over the semester, and we were talking about basically this, like how to get people out to see your show, and a little bit of like how to market yourself as an artist as well. And kind of towards the end, one of the students who, to be honest, hadn't been super active in our like discussion. And I just kind of got the sense that he was like, I'm an actor, like I'm not really that interested in
people
this.
will just come to my shows. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
A little bit. And I was kind of judging him a little bit for that too. And at the end he said, I said to them, like, what did you learn? Like, I would love to just have some, get some feedback and hear what you learned. And he said, I learned how much work goes into getting an audience out to see a show. And I was like, awesome. Like, if that is all that you took away, hopefully you will have, help. Now, like the work that goes into it and all the kind of various strategies and tools that are being used to get you an audience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yay.
Anyway, so to answer your question about me.
Yeah. Who are you?
Who am I? So who am I professionally? Because I feel like there's a difference. I've been working in arts administration for about 10 years now. Like Kayleigh, I have a BFA in theater performance. I started working in kind of more arts admin kind of roles. I've worked with a bunch of theater companies in Vancouver, like Pie Theater and the Frank Theater Company. I also went back to school and I got a master's in arts management. And that's kind of when I started to get more interested specifically in marketing and communications in performing arts. I've worked for the Arts Club Theater Company, and I'm currently moved into like a very niche specialty, it seems, kind of accidentally, of working for post-secondary institutions doing arts marketing. So I worked for Studio 58 at Langara College, and I'm currently with UBC's theater and film department as their communication specialist. So yeah, that's me professionally. I'm really passionate in general about finding ways to make creating art and sharing art more sustainable for everyone. And I'm also really passionate about ensuring that young artists are prepared and equipped to promote themselves as artists and promote their work.
Yeah. And I think that's like really important too, is that word sustainability. As I look at a lot of friends of mine that, this year in particular, fighting the burnout, is, constantly reflecting and looking at ways that we can do better and acknowledging these people that are working hard behind the scenes to make it better in a lot of circumstances. And I think for a question that I have is, what is arts marketing? What does that mean?
Yeah. Actually, to answer that, I know that you have a question about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of answer it now.
You can answer it now. There's no rules here.
So let's talk about marketing.
Yes.
First. So marketing is obviously ways to sell a product.
Yeah.
And there's, it's talked about as a science, like there is a science to it. There's kind of
100%,
research that goes into it, data that goes into it. But when you're marketing a product, for example, say you are a soap company, and your job is to market the soap. What you will actually often do is go to consumers and do some consumer research. So, you might do that like surveys or whatever. I don't know how they do that. I've never marketed soap.
You've never marketed
I
soap?
have not.
Oh, wow.
No.
There's one thing Linda has not done, marketing soap. If anybody needs somebody to, no, I'm just...
So anyway, so you'd go up to people and be like, okay, Kayleigh, like you're a woman in your 30s. You are like this kind of income.
Dare you? I am 21. 21.
You live, in an urban center, like blah, blah, blah. What kind of soap do you use? Like, what are you looking for in a soap? All of that kind of stuff. So you kind of start with the consumer, and then you will use that information to make your product so that you can market it back to them.
Yep.
Very basically. Arts marketing, you start with the product.
Right. Because I was going to say, I was like, how do you start?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people do make art for consumers sometimes.
Yeah. So if we're talking about like creative industries, like the commercial film industry, or like maybe even music industry, yes, you will go to an audience and be like, what kind of action movies
what are you looking for? Yeah, what's the new Marvel film you want? Yeah. Okay.
But typically when we're talking about like, the performing arts and like the kind of work that we do and work with, the art comes to us.
Yeah.
Right. However that happens, like the playwright is like, here's the play, and the director's like, here's the play that I want to direct. And I am, as an arts marketer, I'm never going to say, well, actually, like,
I don't really like that show.
Yeah.
Have you thought about this one instead? Yeah.
That's not my job.
No.
My job is to start with the product, with the art, and find an audience from there, with what I know, and basically use the tools and strategies that I know to get people to come and see the show, or see, whatever it is. Yeah, did that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the difference then between marketing and communication? Because you do both right now with your profession.
Yeah. So marketing is kind of more, it kind of all starts to blur into one.
Okay.
Marketing, I would say, is more like the tools and strategies to get people to come and see a show.
Mhm.
And communications kind of goes more into like the communications methods, like the writing, the message. It's a little bit more like it's a little bit more about the experience rather than financial goals or like ticketing goals.
Gotcha.
Or like selling something.
Yes.
Directly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's just like when I think about words that are associated with arts administrative jobs.
Yeah.
Like producer comes to mind,
Yeah.
right? Or like we have like communication liaisons. So I guess like what is a general team made up of? Like what would you say this is a group of people that you've maybe worked with in the past?
Yeah.
Or and how do they differentiate? And if they do differentiate, do you think that there's stronger teams maybe than others?
Yeah.
Not to be like,
Yeah.
that team was not as good as that team, but I think
Yeah.
it's just often when I've worked with people too, they will put on a producer hat as well as a director hat or a
Yeah.
performer's hat,
Yeah.
because that hat to them seems easy. And I've always found that it's producing is much more difficult than it seems it comes off as.
Oh, totally.
And I think the term producer almost falls into the same categories as an arts marketer or arts communicator. Like they almost they sound the same in a lot of when you do the breakdowns.
Yeah.
But is that true?
Yeah. So talking about like different teams, I mean, it really depends on the organization and like the size and scope and
Funding,
budget,
yeah.
and all of that kind of stuff.
It's always funding. It's always
I mean, more
funding.
often than not within the arts, often it's a team of one who is kind of the marketing / communications person. I mean, ideally they would have, well, yeah, then moving into a bigger arts organization where you might have, someone focused on sales and selling tickets and kind of that whole experience.
That's more like patron services or box office, would you say?
I would say yes, there is that.
Okay.
But then I would say there's also someone, hopefully focused around like the website and like what is the experience of patrons buying tickets? What is the, reporting on the ticket sales, like kind of doing all that kind of work. Yeah, and then obviously you'd have like box office and all of that side of things. And then, graphic designers or like kind of content creators, super important. Is probably someone focused on like communications in terms of like writing copy, like writing the marketing material.
Yeah. And do you work with artists in that way a lot when you write things like that? Because you do some of that too.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I would always work with the director or kind of whoever's, responsible for the creative vision to come up with that writing. Yeah. Yeah. Who else? Yeah, I think that kind of covers it. There might be like maybe a publicist or someone kind of
okay,
working with the media. I think that's kind of getting a little less common as that landscape kind of changes. It's
Yeah.
and that's kind of turning into more like maybe you have someone specifically focused on social
media.
media.
I was going to say that seems to be the avenue now is like, instead of having a publicist, you have somebody in charge of social media.
Yeah.
But you don't do that. Or do you also do social media?
I do that currently. Wow. Yeah. So currently, like in a kind of smaller team, I do kind of a lot of that or part of that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like if you were going to, let's have a theoretical show, Soap Inc. is coming to, you're presenting Soap Inc. That's the name of the new musical. It's about soap. And it's being put on by UBC students. How do you start from there? Where do you go from there?
Yeah. We're talking tools and strategies?
Or? Yeah, I mean, like, how do you even start? Like, I guess you start with the product because you're not starting with the audience necessarily in this circumstance. And then, yeah, I guess, like, what are some tools or tips that you recommend of, like, how do you even get started? Is there a timeline that you follow? Are there, like, general, maybe, I was like materials, that's not the right word. Like applications or, things that you use to kind of help you plan out what you're going to do, and then how do you execute it?
I think timeline is a really good question, because I think often the marketing does come at the end, right? Like you spend so much time working on the project, writing and creating and designing, and there's so much that goes into creating a show, and then it's kind of like, oh crap, like we need an audience quick, and that's when you get those last minute emails that's like, I've got a show on Saturday night,
come, please come, please just come.
And I would say, like, as a general rule, the more selling time you have, the better.
Like opening tickets earlier to be sold.
Yes.
Oh,
absolutely. Like, get tickets on sale as early as you can.
Wow.
And I always hear from people that Vancouver is a last minute city.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I feel like it's a little bit of an excuse. I feel like people say like, oh, Vancouver's such a last minute city. And I'm like, yeah, but when Lizzo came this week, when did people buy their tickets for Lizzo?
Yeah.
Months ago.
Yeah.
So if you had your show last night and you only put tickets on sale 2 weeks ago, people already had tickets to Lizzo, so I just don't really think that there's any harm. Like, sure, like you will notice that ticket sales will probably go,
they will spike closer.
They'll spike, and then once the show is running, there's word of mouth and all of that kind of stuff. But set yourself up for success. Like, give yourself a long period of selling. Like, yes, like you'll want to like budget yourself, because you don't want to like put like full 100% budget into like 3 months of sales period rather than like 2 weeks. But yeah, as a general rule, like, get tickets on sale.
Wow.
As soon as you can, as soon as you have the info,
just do it.
Just do it. Because then, you've got that build up time. Like, you've just got more time. Like, you've just got more time that you're kind of out there with your marketing material.
Yeah. In terms of funding, only because you just like, we kind of touched base on that. Can you apply in a grant for funding for marketing?
Yes. It's been a long time since I've written a grant.
Yeah.
I will admit.
Yeah, because I think that like that's one thing that people often forget to do is include like a producer or marketing or social media. And it's like, pay them to do these jobs.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear, that it does take a team And so it's like, you hire all these people to do things. And when you're putting it into your grant, if you're applying for granting, it's like include those people in your grant, especially if you're thinking of if you're presenting this work on your own, which I know, some people do it presenting under groups. But I think it's just, that's a good idea to think about, is those things. And so, like timeline wise, it's like at least 2 weeks before your show opens, put your tickets on sale.
Absolutely. I like 2 weeks gives me a little bit of a heart attack.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 month ahead.
At least a month. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like our last, when we put tickets on sale. I think they were a month.
I'm just thinking about like my life. Like if you ask me, do you want to go see a show in a week or 2 weeks? I'm going to be like, no, I'm busy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. I think people need time to
figure it out.
Yeah. I think so. Generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how else do you get somebody in now that you've like, tickets are on sale? How do you even get somebody to go and see it? It's a UBC show, so they're all students. Nobody knows who these people are. Soap Inc. new musical.
Yeah, new musical makes it tough.
Yeah.
I don't mean to sound negative, because I'm such a fan of new work. But it does present a marketing challenge, because you don't have the luxury of resting back and being like, hey everyone, we're doing Sound of Music.
Right. We know Sound of Music.
Exactly.
We know the music. Right. So you can kind of tap into that nostalgia that gets awoken when you say Sound of Music. I mean, I'm like, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is totally new musical.
And so if, for example, I was doing, say I'm working with someone that's producing Sound of Music and another company that's doing Soap Inc. the musical, or maybe it's even the same company, I'm going to want the percentage of my budget that is devoted to marketing higher for Soap the musical than for Sound of Music, because you're going to have to work harder for Soap the musical. So that's kind of one thing, is that I would say, like, have an appropriate amount of budget. So then that you can do things like, I'm a huge fan of digital marketing, for a number of reasons.
What does that even mean?
So anything from kind of like display advertising, so like the little ads that kind of follow you around on the internet.
That like pop up.
Yeah, so you're like on Sephora buying makeup, and then there's Soap Inc., a little ad for Soap Inc. the musical.
Yeah.
So those ads.
How do you go about getting something like that?
Through Google Ads.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think you can probably do it other ways. It's been a little while since I've set up a campaign.
Yeah.
Social media advertising. So I think so often people think that social media is free, which it is to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And after that, you've got to put, like, if you really want to see results with social media, you've got to put some money behind it.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise it's, especially my account is private.
Exactly.
So it's only going to reach people that I already know.
Yeah.
So unless I have, an account that's completely open to the public, and even then I think sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll just do it on Instagram and so many people will come. But that's like, those are only people that are associated with me.
Yeah.
And I need people that are not.
Yeah.
I need the general public.
You need the general public, and you need people that have the demographics and the interests that are going to want to come and see your show.
Would they help you tailor things to that? Oh, they would.
Absolutely. Yeah. So social media ads, you can be like, I would like to reach people in Vancouver between these ages, you could do gender, which I don't really think is that important.
People that are interested in soap, though.
Yeah, people who are interested in soap, people who are interested in musicals, people who like live entertainment. You can even do like people who have been to university or high school teachers, or you can really, really kind of tailor it. And that, going back to why I think digital marketing is so key, is that you can target your ads and target your marketing to a specific audience. Whereas if you're talking about like more traditional forms of advertising, like maybe like taking out a big billboard or like a bus ad, you actually don't know who that's going to. Like, that's just kind of like your bus is driving around the city of Vancouver. Like, you don't know who's seeing that. You don't know whether that's getting to your targeted audience.
Right.
And the other thing with digital marketing is that you can track all of this. So you can be like, my ad reached 50 people, and out of those 50 people, 5 people bought a ticket.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Which you can't do with a bus ad, right?
No.
Like, you have no way to measure that.
No.
Yeah. So it's like a really good way. It's a good place to put your budget. Yeah, because you can track that. And you can also, like, you can put up a social media campaign, and if it's doing badly, like if it's not performing well,
right,
cancel it.
Yeah.
And save your money and do something else with your money, you know? Yeah, whereas if you've printed like 5,000 posters and then you're like, well, maybe this isn't working. Too bad, you printed your 5,000
Yeah, you've printed
posters.
them already.
And you don't really have a way of tracking that. Not that like, I think posters and print material still has its use, but
I mean, it's helpful for me when I'm like, I forget things so easily, and then I see things around the city, and then I'm like, oh, right. Oh, yes, that. Oh, right. But I mean, I've fallen for, some of the ads that I've seen on Instagram or TikTok or, and they work.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's interesting.
Speaking of that too, Kayleigh, how you said like you'll notice something, so I can't remember what the exact number is, but there have been studies done that show that in order for someone to buy a ticket or like to move forward with a purchase, they need to have come in contact with that in whatever format. I think it's like 7 different ways.
Like, I've heard about the show in 7 different ways.
Yes.
And then I've bought a ticket.
So maybe you saw an ad on a bus shelter.
Yeah.
You saw it on social media, or you saw it on Facebook. You saw it on Instagram. Someone gave you a poster. Maybe you saw it on Facebook again. And then I told you about the show.
Right.
Yeah.
So and then it takes a while.
And then you bought a ticket. Yeah.
Wow. So like oversaturating almost people with the knowledge. It seems like that might be overdoing it, but actually that's exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like overdo it almost.
The right people.
Yes.
Because the wrong people will just get pissed off, right?
Totally.
But the right people will be like, oh, this is the information that I want.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What other than digital marketing, do you use any other resources?
I am a big fan. I mean, it kind of falls within digital marketing, but I'm a big fan of email marketing. And I think it's an important consideration if you are an emerging artist and you're starting out, is to start building an email list. Because this is something, number one, this is something that you own. You don't own your social media followers. They belong to Meta.
Whoever you're hiring. Yeah.
Like they belong to Facebook or Instagram or whoever.
Yeah.
Whereas your email list can belong like to you. And it's a way of ensuring that you're building a following, and that you can reach out to them anytime that you are doing work. and you're not having to like build that from like
From
build a
scratch.
potential audience
You just
from
keep
scratch. It's
adding.
like,
Yeah.
and hopefully, you know, you're kind of doing work that like each time they're going to be interested in, or kind of like somewhat, you know, some of them are going to be interested in.
What about the tool like MailChimp, like using something like a third party email organizer?
Yeah.
Do you use something like that too?
Yeah. I think MailChimp is a really good one. I've been working with post-secondary institutions with really strict like privacy rules. I've worked with a few Canadian ones, which are not as good, but
that are similar.
That are kind of similar to MailChimp.
Okay,
There's tons of different, you know, there's like MailChimp and Active Campaign, and there's one called Mad Mimi, and there's a whole bunch of ones that kind of do the same thing. But again, those are really great because you can track like how many people open my email, how many people click this link, who unsubscribed. Like it can give you a whole bunch of information that you can use to kind of improve your decision making and improve your strategies.
Nice.
Because ideally, like a big component of marketing is like gathering data and using that data to make better informed decisions about what to do during your campaign and what to do the next time, and you know, to see what your audience is responding to.
And do you think that's why like surveys are important in the arts too? Like when shows are going on, to get that feedback so that you can like continue to move forward. This is more for obviously larger scale, probably like a company who is putting on seasonal work all the time. I mean, if you're doing a one-off show, Soap Inc. happening, you know, one time, we hope presenters pick it up because it's fantastic. So I guess if you're like a small independent company and you're trying to get people out, like these are some great tools. Do you have any like other ones that you would recommend using?
You know, as much as like I almost hesitate to share this one because it seems so obvious, and I feel like people just think I'm like, I don't know, like lazy or like but I always say, and like especially I always say to students when I'm doing promoting student work, it's like sit down and spend half an hour sending like personal texts or emails to your contacts, you know, of like, hey, I'm in this show. It's really important to me because of this. I really think you'll like it. You know, maybe even try and connect it. Like, I think you'll like it because you like, you know,
so
you like taking, I know how much you love taking baths, and this show is
very clean. Your hygiene is spectacular.
Kayleigh and I are actually working on a musical called Soap, and this whole thing is just
this whole thing is a pitch. It's just a pitch session.
Anyway, like send those personal emails and be like, here's how you get tickets. Like these are the dates it's running. Because that having that kind of like personal connection is going to do a lot more than just like kind of posting 3 days on your Twitter about like, I'm in the show.
Yeah.
Like send a message like, hey Kayleigh, like I'm in the show. I really think you'd like it. You know, thanks for inviting me over for dinner the other night. Like kind of making those personal connections. You know, like I don't know, like invite your aunt, invite your grandma, like that is kind of how it starts when you know, when you're talking about like working with not a whole bunch of money and not, you know, you maybe don't have an established audience, like that is kind of how it starts, you know? And you kind of hope that like word of mouth in those cases is really important still.
I think in like I've seen word of mouth work very well, and I think, you know, having shows like I've seen them where they're like 1 week extravaganza, 1 weekend, come, that's all we have. And I'm like, oh, I wish you were on for another week. Like I wish that it was longer because I couldn't see it in this week. But if you had done it one more week, and I encourage people often to split up their performances if they're going to perform to like multiple weekends. If this is like, you know, a big enough show that you also have the budget and you have the time, and because I think sometimes that helps. It's, you know, I went and saw a show and I loved it. So then I tell you, and then you tell someone and you tell someone, and that kind of word of mouth really helps. Would you say too that like community partners are a good thing? Do you work with community partners at all?
Yeah, in terms of like getting other people to kind of help you
spread the word.
I think I think again, outreach is kind of a hard thing to measure. Unless you maybe like give out a promo code or like find some way to kind of track that a bit. But I think outreach isn't, it takes a lot of work.
Like what is outreach, Linda?
Basically it's kind of specifically reaching out to like maybe community groups or high schools, or kind of specific groups of people that you think might be interested in your work, and telling them, like, it's a very kind of like grassroots kind of way of trying to get the word out. I always think it's important to offer these people something, whether that's like comps or a discount or something like that, or maybe you're doing a deal where you'll promote their stuff. But yeah, I think it can be helpful, especially if you are a smaller company and you're kind of like, or maybe you're kind of like trying to reach a new audience. To like look into your community and see like who could maybe help us
spread
with
the
that,
word a
and
little bit.
who could we also like, I think it's like, who can we also offer something to?
Right. Yes.
Otherwise, I think it starts to feel a bit transactional and a bit like, can you help us?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what are you going to offer these people? Like,
don't work for free. Comes back. Don't work for free. Pay people. Even if it's in gifts. Yeah. So as an arts administrator, what do you want to like pass on to others who maybe are interested in getting into this sector of work as well? Like, not do you recommend it or not is not the right question. Obviously we recommend it. Great.
Depends on the day.
Yeah, there's good and bad days always. But I think like for myself, as when I was a young artist, I didn't even know that was a possibility or what that was. Or I was like, oh, boring. It's an office job. And I mean, every job has boring components to it. That's inevitable. But I think if somebody's looking to get into kind of the position that you're in now, how do they even go about doing that?
I mean, I think there's lots of different ways. So I don't want to be too prescriptive. I will say that like I chose to go back to school and get a master's. And I feel like that gave me a really good kind of like academic way of looking at marketing. Like I kind of really helped me build that knowledge and theoretical kind of background quickly. And to be honest, I think I did get jobs that I wouldn't have got maybe if I hadn't had a master's. Not that I needed a master's to do the job, but just that I think it did give me, I think that matters, like for better or for worse. I think that people are still looking and being like, oh, that's cool, that kind of shows something. But that being said, I really don't think that a master's is necessary, and it's not something that I would necessarily recommend. It's expensive. And I think that there's a lot of experience that you can gain from just doing it and mentorship and,
Are there mentorship programs for this kind of work?
So I also did the early career development grant through the BC Arts Council,
Oh, okay.
which I think is still
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
So you could do like kind of a mentorship like that. I think that there are other programs, like I've seen companies offering like a mentorship,
Like Generator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, I will say, like, it's hard to get into arts administration, and I think you can attest to this too. Financially, like,
Yeah.
this isn't a well-paid industry, and I think it, in talking about like equity and diversity and such, like it, I just think it's important to acknowledge, like, I have a family who has financially supported me at times. I didn't have a ton of debt from my undergrad. All of those things that made it easier for me to accept like a lower paying kind of entry level arts admin job, which I think I think it's a problem in our industry.
Yeah.
And I think it's a challenge for emerging arts administrators. Yeah.
Sorry, I have a tickle. I'm gonna steal some of your wine. Okay. Whoa, I sound like a smoker now. There we go. I'm just gonna cry one tear.
One single tear.
Yeah,
because
I think
we have almost come to the end.
We have almost come to the end.
Almost time to cry.
I'm sad it's over. I want to just keep talking to you about this. I think it's important. But it's true. We've actually come to the end, and wow. I'm moved. I'm so moved. I just wanted to say, again, thank you to Impulse Theatre for having us, and to Peak Fest. If you do have any other questions for Linda, you can direct them to info@impulse.ca, and they will kind of funnel that towards Linda. And so that if you do have any other kind of like marketing questions, or you want any resources, Linda can definitely help you with those. It's hard for us to hold up resource signs or things online at the moment. Oh, thank you. It just got put in the chat there, impulsetheater.ca. And it's always a pleasure to be invited to Peak Fest and get to do this. And thank you so much for coming and hanging out in my home.
Thanks,
and
love.
Chatting about this that often doesn't get talked about, is like, what happens behind the scenes and how do we do these things? Because as much as everybody thinks they're so talented and their work will speak for themselves, Soap Inc. will not sell itself. So if you're interested in Soap Inc., the musical,
actually me. That's a good point, love, that I didn't make. I don't think I made yet. But I think that's so important, is that so often as artists we have this important message that we want to share. Maybe it's a work that we've been working on for like 5 years and we know it in and out. Just remember that your potential audience doesn't, right? And so it's something that I notice a lot working with emerging artists is get really clear on your message. Like, what is this show about? What is going to make people want to see it? Don't assume that people will know what it's about,
right.
So get really clear and specific and concise with your message.
Yeah. Well, and that's how it's like you can help tailor it to the right audience that way.
Yeah.
When you know like exactly what you're trying, what this piece is about, who it's trying to affect, then you can really target that audience that you're hoping to bring in. Yeah. Like soaping. Absolutely. It's like about soap. This is just a whole, we've gone down a whole tangent hole.
We're going to have to go create that show.
We do. We're going to go write it right now. Thank you again so much for joining us and for coming out on a Tuesday. to spend some time with us. So
Yeah.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, Impulse Theater. And
Yeah.
good luck with your marketing and your art creation.
Yeah. And go see other things at the festival. Go see them. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.